Lance Hall here for Let's Discuss with Lance Hall. Happy to welcome Chloé Trujillo to the program tonight. Chloé, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Here we are getting ready. Tonight is the full sturgeon moon. Are you a full moon type of person?
Yes. And I forgot to text my friend back, but we usually do a full moon hike. Yeah, I'm totally a full moon type of person.
Excellent. Yeah, it was beautiful last night. I can't wait to see it
Yes,
tonight.
yes. It kept me up actually, because I don't have curtains. We don't have curtains in our bedroom. And
Okay.
the moon was actually hitting right on my pillow where my head is, and it was so bright. It was
Oh,
beautiful.
yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. Speaking of amazing, I've heard some songs off of an EP that you have coming out next week on Golden Robot Records. It's called Heavy Peace.
Mhm.
Fantastic stuff.
Thank you.
Help me understand a little bit. Are the three songs that are out, are there more songs on the EP or is it just these three?
Yes.
This is where I'm confused.
Oh no, there's more.
Okay. How many more?
Yeah. I think two more. Yeah, I believe it's two more. I
Okay.
gotta review my. I've been working on so much new music too that I'm like, yeah, I think there's five songs total on that EP.
Okay. Okay. That's what I thought, but I wanted to be sure. Um,
Yes.
Tell us a little bit. I like the title and I like the cover art. Can you tell us a little bit about both?
Yeah, I mean, the title came, well, actually both I can say. It's kind of, we're trying to get something that really reflects the EP and the vibe of it. And between the music and the lyrics, Heavy Peace seems like perfectly fitting. If I had to find two words to describe this collection of songs, Heavy Peace would be like perfect, because
Mhm.
they're heavy, it's that style, but the piece is kind of like, it reflects more, I think, in the lyric and in the meaning, and then the intention behind each song.
Mhm.
It's always, some songs talk about darker things, but always with a positive resolution to them. So that's how it came, and it's playing between like the darkness and going into something like the light. And so the cover also feels like, okay, it's it reflects that kind of positive magical view, um, that we try to make within all the conflicts of this world nowadays, between
Yeah.
everything we experience actually during, while creating that EP, the confinement, the COVID, all these things, it I think it just helped build this EP altogether.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I can say. And then I'll for the listeners who are gonna listen to the album, they can come up with their own interpretation of
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
that. But yeah, that's how I feel. Yeah, it's a great reflection of what we put out
Nice.
in those songs.
Let's talk about the three tracks that are out, for people to hear. And I'm going to sort of go in the order as to how I listen to them. The first track I listened to was A Ladder to the Sun.
Uh-huh.
Love the title. Great title.
Thank you.
You hear A Ladder to the Stars or A Ladder to Heaven or A Ladder to Here. A Ladder to the Sun. I don't know if I've ever heard that, you know?
Well, there you go.
So originality. Um,
Thank
the,
you.
the video was just, the scenery in it was absolutely stunning. How
Thank
how did
you.
you go about putting that all together?
Um, well, with the video, you mean? It's just
Yeah.
because it's like it's all about the vibe of the song, I think, and a lot of it was, me and Rav Medic talking and getting inspired by like what type of visuals can be a good reflection without being too descriptive, like too I'm like struggling for words now. Like obvious really in what we talk about in the song. And it was just like really showing the beauty of this planet and showing the beauty in everything. And so that's how it came about. And most videos that we've done, and even that I've done, I always like to be sort of a collaborative creative project between the person that's going to do the video and us, or me. We usually send the song ahead of time, and then we have a little bit of an idea of what we want to do, but we let the person that's filming, that's going to create the video, share their ideas, and we all come together and finalize it as like that, like everybody's like bouncing each ideas and then until the final product.
It was like a postcard to the world, watching it.
Yeah, totally. And I felt like when because we know you receive a first edit of the video, and I was almost telling Mark at the beginning, I feel like I'm in a National Geographic, some awesome like video thing, and I was like,
what it sort of reminded me of was this was, I don't even know if they still do this, but a long time ago when you went to like the Epcot Center down in Disney in Florida, you go to the different countries and they have the movies about the countries and the circle theaters,
I remember that. As a child, I was like, woo, that's so cool.
Very cool. I also like the guitar solo in that song. I'm a big guitar solo guy. To me, it had almost like a Soundgarden vibe to it. Kind of dark. I liked it. The next track I listened to, is it Mana or Mana? Mana. Okay. My notes here, the first thing I picked up on was the drumming. I love the drumming in it. I thought it was very neat. Dark, heavy, and then you have this like total atmospheric outro. Again, go to that cinematic type thing. Very, very cool. Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
Well, that's exactly what you said. Like we were trying to, like, everything is I mean, even the way I write the lyrics and the melodies and the songs all together. And I think Mark is pretty much doing the same when we write together. Is like we have like this kind of, it's almost like musical, but it's also very visual and very felt, like full on sensory experience. And so that's how everything came about, and adding like different vibes to it, like you're saying, like the intro or the outro. And we were we're still getting to know one another through this musical project. And I think with this first EP, we wanted really to explore different ways that we could express ourselves musically. And so we went along and did like you said, like it's kind of a mix of styles, but it's still coherent in a way. But
very much.
So that's what we wanted to do, is just like, let's experiment with different sound and different feels and different, vibes to it, and see where we can take this song to, according to the theme, kind of the general theme of the song. Okay, let's do this and let's do that. So it's kind of a bit eclectic, but like I said, coherent still within this. And we were really, we're getting to know each other, and we have similar taste in music, but we just wanted to explore and see where we can take all these different songs. So that's the best I can describe it. It's hard to describe your
definitely. With the recording of this, was there a time where you were ever able to be together, or is this one of those where everybody sent files of their parts?
So that's the way we did this whole EP, is I'm recording, actually I'm in my studio right now. I have an art studio and a little music corner that I started actually building or getting more gear for when lockdown happened, because then all the other studios closed down. So I was like, if I wanted to finish music, I'll just get my own thing and do it on my own. So we were really doing everything through internet. And even the first song we wrote, funny enough, we had never met in person. Just everything was through email, sending files and all this, and over the phone communicating. And it's not until the filming of our first music video that we actually met in person.
Wow.
So yeah, but technology, it's kind of magical. When you use it like the right way, it's great.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's almost, getting emails and files of songs. It's almost like the old days, of getting letters and tapes in the mail,
Totally.
The third track, of course, that I got to hear was The Heaviest Sound is Silence. Again, fantastic title. And again, an incredibly visual video and a great message. And the way I've described the riff is a bulldozer of a riff. Was the term I came up with. That is just,
I like it. I like what you came up with. See, you're helping me.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, that is a great, as we talked about, a reflection of the times that we've been through and everything. Fantastic
well,
stuff.
Exactly. Right, that's what it is. Like it was really, I mean, how can you not be influenced by what's going on in the world? I mean, it was everywhere. So so we were like, okay, let's make something beautiful out of it, magical, and express ourselves and how we feel, and there you go. That's how the EP was born, pretty much, in this kind of weird era.
Yeah, I think you might have just answered my next question for me before I asked it. Everyone talks about dealing with COVID and dealing with the lockdowns and the isolation and the challenges and everything. And it tended to tell on what was the hardest part of it. My question was going to be, what's something positive that you brought out of it that might not have happened if we hadn't have had this scenario?
Well, that's one example. I mean, who knows, but one of the things I can tell you that might not have happened is me going over that threshold, because I was always reluctant to use computer for everything, like I can do emails, I can send files and all this, but music files, the way I always wrote my songs, my own material before, is I always was dependent on an engineer to put it together for me. Like I would come up with my recordings and my ideas, and I'll like, okay, now can you put it like let's under this tempo and put it in everything, and really that this everywhere, everything shut down, we were isolated. That kind of forced me, and in a good sense of the term, it forced me to learn how to use the software and do it on my own. And I bought a good mic, I recently tested some other mics, and I was like, oh my God, I found like this amazing mic, but it's very expensive. So right now I'm sticking with the one that I have here, but I got a good interface, I got good headphones, like the simplest stuff, but just to get myself going so I could continue being creative. So for me, that was super positive, because then it gave me all that freedom. Like I don't have to go anywhere. I just create here, and I'm still learning. It's a long process. I think you never stop learning how to use all these tools, but at least I can do things, and for me, that was one of the best things. And then another one that was cool is just to be locked down with my family.
Sure.
I mean, at some point, we all have to work and all this and have social lives, but it was the first time where my husband was home for such a long time, and we were cooking together, we were having meals together and all this. So I try to always look at what's positive in any situation. So and I was super creative during the whole thing because I didn't have to drive anywhere except to get groceries, and that was pretty much it. So I also painted a lot and did music and art, and from there I got, I did, when things started reopening, we just did more, art shows and more things. But that was, I'm not complaining because I know some people I did like really hard, and so I can, I can have compassion and understanding of everybody else's challenges. And I don't think, and we had challenges too, and differently, but like I said, I tried to see the positive side. So that's creating music, creating art, and getting some family time. That was like definitely the positive of this whole crazy situation.
Yeah, very cool. Now you mentioned Rav Medic. You met him in 2021 at a Global Green charity event at the Troubadour in LA. Had you guys had any contact before then, or that was like your first time meeting?
Never. We never had contact. We didn't even have contact at that event because it was still COVID. So all the artists could not meet one another in person.
Okay.
And so that's how we found out about each other, just through that show, because I viewed the show after, we all had the link, and it was a virtual online viewing, so, and I was like, oh, wow, and then from that show, he's the one that reached out to me asking if I would collaborate on the song. And I say, yeah, absolutely. And then we start writing the first song, like I said, with just emailing and sending files and talking on the phone. And we met the first time at the video shoot, in person. But it's very strange, but it worked out, and it was cool.
Very cool. I want to talk a little bit. I read about some of your musical influences. I was kind of fascinated by this. Of course, your grandfather was an opera singer.
Yeah.
You've been influenced by metal, punk, death metal, but you've also done a lot of cabaret work. So you have 20s, 30s, 40s French and German cabaret. Do you find, any common denominator throughout all this music, or is it just one genre so different from the other? Or does, like, say, death metal and 30s German cabaret have anything in common?
I mean, yes. I think there's a lot of musicality that has, it's very, if I'm listening to the band Death, I don't know if you're familiar with Death, but some of the riffs of like, you listen to spiritual healing, and then it's like, oh wow, that's like all kind of like jazzy, or even later, like Human and all these albums. Is like, oh wow, there's like a lot of, it's like very progressive, but it's like, okay, it's jazzy, and there's just so many I feel like there's definitely a connection between all styles of music. But when I was younger, I was definitely, I listened to a lot of opera because my grandfather was a professional opera singer. So it was there, but I felt I find the metal in that. I found like, and I think a lot of bands have, there's some darkness into some classical pieces that are just, that would be such cool guitar riffs. Like, there's always a link to me. And the cabaret stuff, it didn't come, I never really listened to it until I moved out of my country. I'm from Paris, France originally. And when I started living in the States, I was kind of missing that culture. So I was never really listening to any of these things. But then I started getting work singing for because I was like cast in like the French roles. So it's often like, okay, like sing cabaret stuff, and and I speak, I speak German fluently. So there was a lot of German cabaret um, songs, and obviously French.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it's just, but to me, everything is connected, all types of music. There's so much, I would hear certain songs and it would remind me of another song from a different genre of music. I mean, I could see the connection and how, and then you can play any song in any style you want. The same song can become like, a metal song or a jazz song or, I mean, I love it all.
Very cool. The other thing that fascinated me in reading parts of your story, your punk days experience.
Yeah.
Tell me about this person. Is his name Destroy? Who would put rusted safety pins through his
Oh man. Oh yeah. Well, I was like hanging out with the punk rockers, and there was a few homeless guys that joined in the camp there, and we're hanging out in the metro in Paris and doing all kinds of stuff, and and I was like very young, a very young teenager, early teens, and no, that story is funny because we would go sometimes to the flea market in Paris, just at the outskirts of Paris. And this place I went a couple years ago and it's totally changed, but back in the day, this was like, they had a whole section with like military stuff, also very like all the metal stuff for punk rock, whether it's t-shirts and jewelry, and then they had the Indian people. That's where actually I had my nose pierced, because it was before piercing was such a more common. I had to have the Indian woman pierce my nose over there at the flea market and all this. And yeah, well, everybody had nicknames. Most of the people had nicknames.
Yeah.
So Destroy was one, I pronounced it the French way, Destroy. We had Rocky, we had a Destroy, we had like a different, like a bunch of different names. And I remember we were walking in the flea market and I was chatting with him. And then all of a sudden he picks up this rusted safety pin and he pierces his cheek with it. He's putting it in his cheek. And I'm like, what?
Ouch.
Things like that. That was just like, not make sense, but whatever, it's just very, but yeah, it was a whole era.
I like the story about when your friends picked you up and your math teacher was a little less than impressed with your craft.
Yeah, that too.
Which, you said you were a great mathematician, and I also read where you have like diplomas in like science, healing, art, languages. Was there ever a time, as backups, has there ever been a time where you thought, oh, I gotta go to one of these backups, or have you always been able to live what you wanted to live?
Well, I was always a great mathematician and I loved math, but because it was such a interesting and not only fascinating, but also the satisfaction when you get to solve a math problem. And I'm talking about abstract math. I'm not talking about the math where you count the drops to fill the bathtub and all that. That kind of math I always hated. But as soon as you brought in component like X, Y, Z, and all this kind of the sigma symbols and all these things, I was so into it. And actually my uncle is I don't know what the equivalent in English would be called. Here we call it the maître de conférence, a master of conférence. It's just like conference, but it's not, I don't know. It's like the highest degree you can get in math.
Okay.
So he's one of those guys. And I remember as a child and teenager spending hours on the phone with him, solving math problem and talking about math and all this. It was so fascinating. The more abstract and and I feel like it's very connected to art because, it's like your imagination almost. It involves being creative because you can't, it's not something you can physically touch, but it's, and it's that strive for perfection and all this stuff. And and so I was always into art and music, and my dad, even though he quit school at 14 and built his fashion line and was successful at it without really an advanced education, he saw that I was so good at math that he kind of forced me to get like all these degrees in math and physics, just as a backup, just in case, because he was always like, well, how are you going to make a living being an artist? And he was just trying to do good. And so after I got those degrees, and then I went full on to do art and music, and the healing part was because I was always fascinated with everything that's kind of mysterious, everything that we don't know, or everything that's unseen, and what goes on after death, and what's the meaning of life, and how can I work this? And also I had some experiences with like energy work, and so I wanted to dive deep, and I learned all kind of methods to work with energy, learning how mediumship and communicating with spirit guides and things like that, and becoming a Reiki practitioner and working with shamans and big kahunas and all kinds of stuff, because to me it was fascinating, and I felt like also I use it a lot. I infuse what I create with all this energy, and that I created 2 decks of cards too, because I was doing so many readings at one point. I'm like, I'm just, all these deck ideas come. So I have 2 decks of cards, like, and everything is kind of connected,
I agree.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's
very cool. Very cool. So the EP comes out, just to get us back to, heavy piece here.
Yeah.
I mean, I love this conversation. I could talk here for a while about this, but
I love that you did all this, that everything. I mean, it's kind of, it's not often that we get somebody that interviews you and that knows,
I like to do my research.
Yeah, it's good. I appreciate it.
Oh, and I appreciate the compliment. So Heavy Peace comes out next week. What goes forward from there? I mean, is there going to be any live dates, or is this just sort of a studio thing? What's going to happen?
Yeah. So we're working on the second EP. So we want to release a full album eventually. We're talking about live shows, probably early next year, I'm guessing. And we actually said yes to one show for March of 2023. So we will definitely be doing some performing. So yeah, it's in the talks. We haven't started really being like super concrete and booking things yet, but it's definitely, and I think with 2 EPs we'll have enough material, instead of just like 5 songs, like it'd be more, we'll have more stuff to play, so it'd be fun.
Absolutely. Chloé, I believe it or not, I always like to end with what I call my silly questions. I'm hoping these are questions maybe you've never even been asked. Does that sound good to you?
All right, let's.
You obviously speak a number of languages. You mentioned German and French and everything. Is there a language that you don't speak that you would like to be able to speak instantly?
Wow, that's a hard question, because that's another kind of passion. I mean, maybe passion. I love to communicate and I love languages. I actually started learning Persian, Farsi, a few months ago, so I'm learning that language. I took Japanese in high school. I'm really also fascinated with languages that use a different writing than our alphabet. So of course the Arabic alphabet, now I know there's some that are not pronounced the same as in Persian, but it's like the same letters. So I kind of know those letters. I'm just, I don't know, they're like, when I learned Japanese, you learn a few kanji from Chinese, but this is so I mean, ultimately, there's not one language. I would like to be able to speak all language
Okay.
because it's so great. Like, you know, I speak German and French fluently, and I love to read. And I think it's so much better to read in the original language that a book was written. Like, I love to read Goethe in German, you know, and I love to read my French books in France, and I was just in France after 2 years of not going anywhere just last month, and actually over a month ago, and I always make a trip to the bookstore, and I get, you know, my French books, and so I would love to be able to speak all kinds of languages and learning, because you learn also a lot from the way people talk, and just the idioms and everything that they use, you know. It's just the culture for me. It's so, and that's why I took Farsi, is like, because the Persian culture is so rich, and you know, I don't have any family that's from there, but it's fascinating to me. And that's why I took Japanese in high school, because I was like, wow, you know, other letters, they're using all these symbols. You know, it's all interesting. So
Okay.
it's
right.
I'm sorry I can't
That's okay.
say one language, because I want to absorb it all and kind of get to know it all. But you know, it's like there's so much time in a day and in a life that, you know. But that's what I do. Every country I visit, you know, I ask some basic words, and then I try to remember them, and at least for, you know, for the time being, I know these words and how to say hello and how are you and things like that.
Okay. I'll make this one easier for you then. Given your choice of household chores, dishes or laundry?
Dishes.
Dishes?
Yeah.
Okay. Favorite city?
Well, I have to say Paris is where I'm from, and it's in my heart, I think. So I love where we live, but I love to visit Paris always. Like that's, you know, I just missed it so much. So yeah.
What is a household appliance you can't live without?
Ooh, my God. Maybe the fridge.
Okay. Last one, and this is the one we have the most fun with. If they were to make a biopic of your life, what actress would you pick to play you? And it's your movie, your life. You can pick anybody.
Oh my God, that is the hardest question ever, especially because I watch a lot of movies, but I don't know, except like super famous actors. Like I don't know many actors, their names or anything. You know, I see, oh, like, you know, the other day I was watching a movie. I say, oh, this woman that plays the lead role, I saw her in this movie and this movie, but I still don't know her name. I'm really bad. I'm not like, I don't read People magazine or things like that. So I'm really bad at names.
Okay.
But I could play it myself.
Okay.
I don't know how good I'll be.
There you go. You'll play yourself in your movie. That's a great answer. I've never gotten that one before, so that sounds good. We've been chatting. Been chatting with Chloé Trujillo here. The new EP, her new EP that she did with Rav Medic is called Heavy Peace. It's coming out August 19th on Golden Robot Records. It is fantastic. I've heard 3 tracks. I'm anxious to hear the other 2. Chloé, thank you very much for a very enjoyable conversation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your research. It was great talking with you. Thank you.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
I will. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.